and welcome to Learning Matters, a podcast where we discuss all matters related to learning. At the Teacher Foundation, we feel that there are different aspects that contribute to effective learning, different aspects in terms of stakeholders, different things that we can do inside and outside the classroom. So today in this podcast, our focus will be on leveraging the parent and the community outside the school for effective learning. I have Chinwe Onwujuba. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. You'll help me correct that. Welcome to this podcast, Chinwe. I met Chinwe through the Fulbright teacher exchange program when she was in India recently. Chinwe, I know a particular interest of yours, even as part of the Fulbright teacher exchange program and otherwise, is about working with parents. So I want to first of all ask you, why are you interested in this? Why is this of particular interest to you?
From a very foundational, basic sort of motivation, my motivation in finding ways to facilitate parent involvement in education is because I am a parent. As a young mother, I have two children. One is headed off to college next week, and then I have a sixth grader. As a young parent, when my son was younger, I realized that I did not quite know the best way to teach him as a mother. I know that based on my experience then and based on research that I've read and my experiences now as an educator, parents are children's first teachers. When children are born, first of all, they live within some research will call it an ecological system. They live within an ecological system of first they are within the family, and then that system expands to their community, their daycare, the people that they meet on their neighbors, and then that community expands to include the school, churches or mosques or places of worship where they go when they go to the movies, and that community expands even more to the overarching society. So the beginning circle, the beginning community that children start out in is their families. And there's a lot of learning that happens within the family. That learning can be based off of cultural practices. It can be based off of traditions that children are born into. It can be based off of the community that they live in. Parents will teach their children what they know. What is the overall goal for education that you have for your child? What do you want as a parent? What do you want your child to accomplish by the time they leave? Is that goal something that will enable the student to eventually become a functional member of society, and for me, a more global citizen? Once we are agreed on those goals, then we can come together and work on, the individual steps. There have been times in the history of education within the United States, I will say, where a lot of times the interaction between the school and the parents was, as a teacher, I'm telling the parents, this is what you need to work on with your child, whatever it might be. But I do believe that we have evolved from that. We have sort of moved on to collaborate instead of, sort of like a top-down sort of system, collaborating to figure out as parents, what is your goal for your child? School system, this is the goal that we have for your child as they go through the different levels of school. How can we bring those two goals together so that the child benefits the most? So that has been my interest as an educator. I've also, I'm what you would designate as an ESL teacher. ESL stands for English as a Second Language. For those students, we also call them emergent bilinguals. So these are students who come from families that don't have English as their primary language. And so I have had to realize that I needed to make that extra effort to make sure that parents understand what is happening in school, because what would happen is I would teach in the classroom and we would work on something and I would think that we're making progress, but then the child goes home and it's not reinforced. That reinforcement is important. It's not reinforced at home. And so sometimes if learning only happens within the class, well, when I say learning, I mean what we would consider like school learning. I don't want to say just academic learning, but school learning. If the school learning happens only at home, there is a disconnect with the family because the families don't know necessarily what's going on in the classroom. So there isn't that flow of learning. That learning experience is sort of not wholesome for the child. And so in order to keep that system of learning, like I talked about with the ecological system, in order to keep that system of learning coherent, we need to be working together. Parents, families, and the school, we need to collaborate together.
What should be the various things to communicate to a parent, apart from policies and and what is happening, within the classroom at that point of time? What are the things that a teacher, when we're talking of parental communication, not just what should it be and how frequently should it be, what are the modes of parental communication also? I know I'm putting a lot of things in one question, but I think it's good to discuss it sort of together.
So your question is about what are things that should be communicated to parents?
Yes.
Okay.
And how frequently should they be communicated? Those two. Because I think what and how frequent should go in hand too.
If I may, I would like to add something to the premise of the question before moving on to the question, the what and the how. In talking about collaborating with parents, it is the best case scenario is when you have parents who are able to communicate. So having a specified time within the day for the teacher to be available to parents or community members is excellent. That is an excellent plan and should be implemented as often as possible in every school. Before we can do that, however, we have to understand the demographics of our community. I have taught at different schools. Some of them have more parental engagement and some of them have had less parental engagement. One of the things that I have realized, and in my experience, you have to meet parents where they are. If you have parents who can come in to the schools to communicate, that is excellent. If you have parents who can, call on the phone, send an email, a message, who can communicate, that is excellent. However, in my experience, there have been times where parents just don't have the time. Let's say, for instance, that the community that we are teaching in has homes where both parents are working. So there's no one is at home. The child goes to school in the morning, comes back at the end of the day when parents come home. So both parents are working. There's no one at home, to stand as in place of the parents. So communication might not be the highest priority for parents. However, they do still feel the need to be a part of their child's learning experience. So what do you do in that situation? Sometimes as educators, we have to be the ones to seek out parents. If we are invested in providing a space where parents are welcome, to let parents know that their input is welcome, that we want to know what they think. Sometimes and I've had to do this in the past, we have to reach out to parents. There have been situations that I know of where at the beginning of the year, teachers will go out once they know the students that are coming to their school and they have their home addresses. Teachers will drive out into that community. They will pick maybe a Saturday or the weekend when they know parents will be home, or in the evening when they know parents will be home, and they will drive out to introduce themselves. In another setting that I've been in, the teachers there's a meet the teacher event, and the teachers are in the classrooms in school and parents come to the school to meet the teacher. And so in both situations, there is a nonverbal message and a verbal message that's being communicated. This is an open door policy. We appreciate your presence. We want your input. We want your interaction. Both scenarios are giving that message. And so coming back to the what and the how is sort of addressed in that way. Yeah. When you go out, when you reach out to parents, and there's some situations where parents are not able to reach out to the teacher. It has to go the other way around. Sometimes it's not the whole school. Sometimes as a teacher, if I notice that I haven't really heard from this parent since school started, I will reach out. I will make the phone calls. I will try to find information about the parent within reason, not going across, privacy concerns. But I will try to reach out to the parent and find out, is everything okay? This is what we're doing. What are your goals for your child? This is our schedule. This is what's happening this month, things like that, to keep the parent aware. And the reason why I do this, again, it goes back to that ecological system. That system where the family is part of learning is very important. I think it is key. I think it's foundational to learning, because if parents are getting from the school or the teacher that education is important, what we're doing in the classroom is important, they will pass that message on to their children, either by telling them directly that school is important, or by encouraging them or providing them with what they need, or the parents will try to find information or resources to help the child. All of those are, the parent is communicating to the child, education is important, do your best, we believe in you, we want you to be your best. That addresses, I think, the how, the what of what you're communicating.
Yeah.
My experience, there have been newsletters that are sent home to parents in an email. I have used text messages to communicate with parents, because in this day and age of the digital phones and digital services, there are websites that you can set up to communicate with parents. You can send text messages to communicate with them. There are some parents who prefer face-to-face. There are some parents who prefer paper. So I will, if there's a sheet of paper that has information, I will give it to the child and ask the child to give it to the parent, if that is a situation that works. So I think, to summarize what I'm saying, it is context dependent. It depends on your demographics. It depends on the parents themselves, what they are willing and what they're able to do in terms of communication and collaboration. And then it also depends on the teacher. On this point, I will say that when it comes to parent collaboration, it should not, collaboration with the community, it should not, and most likely would not be effective if done in isolation. So if I'm a teacher in my classroom and I have my parents, I communicate solely with them and it's a back and forth with them. There might be another teacher next to me who has a better way of communicating with parents and collaborating with parents. And so it needs to be within the school culture. There needs to be that system or that culture of teachers collaborating with each other. Sometimes it might be a situation where you set up, okay, once a week, teachers come together and share your experiences about communicating with your parents. What is working for you? What is not working for you? The information that you receive from your parents, how are you putting that back into your instruction, into how you teach? There has been the idea that teachers teach in silos, like you're in your classroom and you do what you have, you take care of you. But the idea of collaborating amongst teachers for different goals, but in this instance, we're talking about parent communication, collaborating amongst teachers to discuss parent communication, what works and what doesn't work, and how to move forward is also, I think, beneficial. I hope I have answered your question. I feel like I was touching on.
Thank you so much, because it was sort of an extended question with the what and the how sort of mixed in the same question.
Yeah.
I think that was great. I think some key takeaways for me, I think I first of all like the word that you're using, collaboration, repeatedly. It's communicate to collaborate to achieve goals for, the learning goals of a child. Or what goals that you set for your learner. Let's just talk about this kind of communication with parents, where that communication could be potentially challenging, could be uncomfortable. What do you think is the best way for teachers to handle and the school to handle this? Chinwe.
I think that is an excellent question. I also think that it goes back to the policy and the culture that has been established at the school. I have experienced different situations at different schools where, in some situations, parents sort of held at arm's length. We are the school, we are the teachers, we know what we're doing. You are the parent, we will tell you what to do. I have been in a situation like that. I've also been in a situation where it depends on the teachers to establish, each teacher establishes sort of the culture of communication between them and their parents. So the teacher will either have the culture where parents input and collaboration is welcome, or, again, arm's length, or maybe a bit of both. I feel that based on research and experiences from myself and other teachers, it starts off with the school. So the school itself, the institution itself, has to have a policy, if you will. I prefer to call it a culture of respect for parents and acknowledgement of parents, and acknowledgement of the not power that parents have, but how important the parents are to the child's overall learning experience, and how important it is to collaborate with parents. So treating parents with respect and letting them know your opinion matters. As Lalitha had mentioned, when you have an orientation or a meeting at certain times where you give parents the opportunity, tell us what's working for you, tell us what's not working for you. Some institutions will start out the year with a distinct and direct sort of session on parent communication. What are things that you can and should say to parents, and what are things that you can and should not say to parents? First of all, it needs to be welcoming. The message needs to be one of collaboration. The message needs to be one of acknowledging that parents' concerns are valid and parents' input is valid, acknowledging that parents play a significant role in their child's learning experience. And so that is what that promotes. And at the end of the year, which I have done this in the past, at the end of the year, I will send a survey to my parents and ask them what worked for you, what did not work for you. That might not be something that might not be an attractive sort of idea to some teachers, because it's hard to take criticism. And there are some times when parents, especially if it's online, I find that if you're talking face to face to an individual, they will sometimes try to be gentle and kind. But sometimes if you send a survey out to parents, I've gotten some feedback that was not very and that's okay. I want to know what worked for you and what was a concern for you, if it was addressed and if it was not addressed, because then what'll happen is I will try my best to pass that message along to whoever can make it better, either the child's next teacher in the next grade level, or to my administration. And so first of all, the school or the institution needs to have that policy or that culture of parent input is important. And so when that has been established, that culture has been established within the school, then teachers are aware, like Lalitha had mentioned, teachers have like a script in their mind, or they have a general idea of how to respond to parents who might be aggressive, how to respond to parents who might be discontent, how to respond to parents who just don't know what they should know in order to help their child. Sometimes parents just don't know, and we need to provide them that information. So providing some sort of professional development or training in communication, in sometimes the tone of your voice when you're talking face to face, your body language and your hand gestures and your face will convey a message, as opposed to if you're typing an email. Sometimes people can read an email and take it the wrong way. And so that conversation needs to be had with staff, with teachers, either as a whole campus or teachers talk amongst themselves. And so that might help with addressing situations where you might have parents who are not very happy with you. Parents who are happy with you, that's easy. I mean, you give them the information, they work on it, that's wonderful. That's what we want. But there will be times when you will have a parent. I have had situations where the child is a special needs child. The relationship between the parent the school and the teacher, the communication needs to be well thought out, and it needs to be systematic, and it needs to be facilitated so that the parent understands we're all in this together, we're all on the same team. This is what we're seeing. Perhaps you can help with this at home. What concerns do you have? We can help you find the resources. So I think considering, first of all, what communication culture that the school or the learning space has, and then using that to provide some sort of, support, training support for teachers in terms of when you're having this conversation, let's do a role play, or reach out to your colleagues. Have you ever had this situation? Reach out to your admin. I will also say that it's very important to have your admin, the support of your admin, because if you're having a communication with a parent and it blows up, maybe the parent is upset for whatever reason, teachers need to tie in their head teachers or the principals or the administration so that everyone is on the same page and everyone is trying to help solve that problem, whatever it may be.
I think those are some really great points, Chinwe. I think I especially liked the point about the fact that I think teachers sometimes we need training as teachers, to communicate, because I think sometimes these challenging situations, how to deal, how to speak in those, I think we get a little unnerved, or get a little overwhelmed. We feel we are blamed. So I think I understand that, having been a teacher myself, training teachers now, that is challenging. That is what at times as teachers what we really need.